This is the USA Emergency Broadcast Network, your source for reliable disaster preparedness information.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
Welcome to We the People 21. This is the show that strips away the spectacle in Washington and gives you the truth, the kind of truth that matters when the cameras stop rolling and the decisions start shaping your life. I'm Racheal Quinn, and today we're tackling something that looks like theater but drives the laws you live by: congressional hearings. If you've ever watched one of these hearings and thought, this feels like a performance, you're not wrong. It is. But here's the part most people miss. Behind the theatrics, real power moves are happening. Deals are being cut, narratives are being shaped, and if you're not paying attention, you're handing the script to people who care more about optics than outcomes. Why this episode matters. Congressional hearings aren't just political theater, they're the machinery of governance. They decide what bills move forward, what regulations tighten or loosen, and what rights you keep or lose. As the Congressional Research Service reminds us, hearings often determine the fate of legislation. They're not just talk, they're leverage. And yet, too often, hearings devolve into grandstanding. Lawmakers chase viral moments instead of facts. Witnesses rehearse sound bites instead of substance. And the public, we get the highlight reel, not the truth. That's why this episode matters. Because when hearings become theater, accountability becomes a prop. And democracy, it becomes a spectator sport. Who I am and why I care. If you're new here, let me introduce myself. I'm Racheal Quinn, a lawyer by training, a constitutional purist by conviction, and someone who's allergic to political bullshit. I've spent years dissecting hearings, reading transcripts, and watching lawmakers turn serious oversight into campaign commercials. I believe in straight talk, not spin. I believe the rule of law is sacred, not a tool for power. And I believe citizens have a duty to stay informed, question authority, and hold power accountable. That's why I'm here. That's why this show exists. The big question. Here's the question we're answering today. Are congressional hearings about substance or spectacle? And more importantly, how does that choice ripple through your life? Because when lawmakers grandstand for cameras instead of grilling for facts, bills get stalled, oversight gets diluted, and accountability evaporates. As the Brennan Center points out, transparency isn't a privilege, it's a cornerstone of democracy. When hearings look like theater, people stop believing in the process. And when trust collapses, democracy cracks. The anatomy of a hearing. Let's start with the basics. Congressional hearings are formal meetings where committees gather information, question witnesses, and debate issues relevant to legislation or oversight. They're supposed to be fact-finding missions. But in today's media-saturated world, they've become something else, a stage. Think about the last high-profile hearing you watched. Maybe it was a tech CEO being grilled about privacy. Maybe it was a Supreme Court nominee facing a barrage of questions. Did you notice the props? The charts, the dramatic pauses, the rehearsed sound bites? That's not an accident. That's choreography. And here's the kicker. While lawmakers are performing for the cameras, real decisions are being made, decisions that affect your health care, your taxes, your civil liberties. Historical context. This isn't new. The McCarthy hearings in the 1950s were pure theater, fear-driven, headline-grabbing, and light on facts. Fast forward to Watergate, and you see the opposite. Hearings that exposed corruption and reshaped public trust. Today, we're somewhere in between. Hearings are televised, live-streamed, clipped for social media. Lawmakers know that one viral moment can raise millions in campaign donations. So what do? They perform. As the Brennan Center warns, this performative culture erodes public trust. When hearings look like theater, people stop believing in the process. And when trust collapses, democracy cracks. Impact on you. So why should you care? Because hearings decide what laws get written, what regulations get enforced, and what rights you keep or lose. When a hearing on data privacy turns into a circus, tech companies walk away with loopholes. When a hearing on healthcare becomes a shouting match, patients pay the price. When oversight hearings devolve into partisan brawls, agencies operate without scrutiny. This isn't abstract. It's your life. It's your paycheck, your privacy, your kids' education. And if you're not paying attention, you're handing the script to people who care more about optics than outcomes. What's coming next? In segment 2, we're going to break this down, the anatomy of a modern hearing. We'll dissect the choreography, expose the tactics, and show you how to separate theater from substance. Because once you understand the playbook, you can hold the players accountable. But before we move on, let me leave you with this thought. Democracy isn't a spectator sport. If you're sitting in the audience, you're already losing. It's time to step onto the stage, not with violence, not with chaos, but with informed, organized civic action. Welcome back to We the People 21. If you've been with me since segment 1, you know we've set the stage. Congressional hearings aren't just political theater, they're the machinery of governance. They decide what bills move forward, what regulations tighten or loosen, and what rights you keep or lose. Now let's dig deeper. Let's talk about what's really at stake when hearings turn into a circus. Let's talk about why this matters, not just for Washington insiders, but for you, your family, and your future. The anatomy of power. Here's the truth. Hearings are where power gets exercised in real time. They're not just fact-finding missions, they're leverage points. As the Congressional Research Service notes, hearings often determine the fate of legislation. They shape narratives, influence votes, and set the tone for policy debates. But here's the problem. When hearings become theater, substance takes a back seat. And when substance takes a back seat, accountability evaporates. The spectacle versus substance dynamic. Let's break this down. A hearing has 2 layers. The substance layer, facts, evidence, testimony, and policy implications. The spectacle layer, optics, sound bites, and viral moments designed for media consumption. When the spectacle dominates, lawmakers spend more time crafting applause lines than asking real questions. Witnesses rehearse talking points instead of providing clarity. And the public? We get the highlight reel, not the truth. As the Brennan Center warns, this performative culture erodes public trust. When hearings look like theater, people stop believing in the process. And when trust collapses, democracy cracks. Why this matters for everyday Americans. So why should you care? Because hearings decide what laws get written, what regulations get enforced, and what rights you keep or lose. When a hearing on data privacy turns into a circus, tech companies walk away with loopholes. When a hearing on healthcare becomes a shouting match, patients pay the price. When oversight hearings devolve into partisan brawls, agencies operate without scrutiny. This isn't abstract. It's your life. It's your paycheck, your privacy, your kids' education. And if you're not paying attention, you're handing the script to people who care more about optics than outcomes. Case study, tech hearings. Let's take a real-world example, the tech CEO hearings on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers lined up to grill executives about privacy, data breaches, and monopolistic practices. Sounds substantive, right? But look closer. How many questions were designed for clarity, and how many were designed for Twitter? How many lawmakers used their 5 minutes to ask tough questions, and how many used them to deliver campaign-ready soundbites? The result? Headlines, viral clips, and very little legislative action. Meanwhile, your data is still being harvested, your privacy is still being compromised, and the companies responsible are still operating with minimal oversight. Case study: healthcare hearings. Now let's talk healthcare. Hearings on prescription drug pricing have been some of the most dramatic in recent years. Lawmakers slam pharmaceutical CEOs, demand accountability, and promise reform. But here's the reality: while the cameras roll, patients keep paying sky-high prices. Why? Because hearings without follow-through are theater. They create the illusion of action without delivering results. As the Government Accountability Office reminds us, oversight is only effective when it leads to tangible outcomes. Without that, hearings are just noise. The hidden costs of theater. Here's something most people don't realize. When hearings become theater, the costs aren't just political, they're economic and social. Delayed legislation. Bills stall because lawmakers prioritize optics over substance. Weakened oversight. Agencies operate without scrutiny because hearings focus on headlines, not accountability. Eroded trust. Citizens lose faith in government, leading to disengagement and polarization. And disengagement, that's the real danger. Because when people stop believing their voices matter, democracy dies in silence. The role of media. Now let's talk about the media. Hearings are broadcast live, clipped for social media, and analyzed on news platforms. This amplifies the need for memorable moments. Lawmakers know that one viral clip can raise millions in campaign donations. So what do? They perform. As the Brennan Center points out, this performative culture isn't just a political problem, it's a civic crisis. Because when hearings look like theater, people stop believing in the process. And when trust collapses, democracy cracks. No-nonsense analysis. Let me be blunt, theater isn't always bad. Sometimes, it's the only way to get the public's attention. But when theatrics overshadow substance, we all lose. I've seen it happen. I've read transcripts where lawmakers spent more time crafting viral moments than asking real questions. And you know what that means. It means hearings become less about oversight and more about optics. It means accountability becomes a hashtag instead of a reality. What can be done? So what's the solution? How do we reclaim hearings as forums for truth instead of stages for spectacle? Demand transparency. Push for full transcripts, not just highlight reels. Track votes. Don't just watch the hearing, follow the legislation. Engage civically. Contact your representatives. Ask tough questions. Hold them accountable. As the League of Women Voters reminds us, democracy works best when citizens are informed and engaged. And that starts with you. In segment 3, we're going to give you the tools to do exactly that. We'll talk about how to protect yourself, your family, and your future. We'll give you clear, actionable steps to make your voice heard, peacefully, effectively, and without apology. Because here's the truth, democracy isn't a spectator sport. If you're sitting in the audience, you're already losing. It's time to step onto the stage, not with violence, not with chaos, but with informed, organized civic action. Welcome back to We the People 21. If you've been with me through segments 1 and 2, you know the stakes. Congressional hearings aren't just political theater, they're the machinery of governance. They decide what bills move forward, what regulations tighten or loosen, and what rights you keep or lose. Now it's time to shift gears. We've talked about the problem, the spectacle versus substance dynamic. We've exposed the risks, the erosion of trust, the weakening of oversight, the real-world consequences for families and businesses. But here's the truth. Knowing the problem isn't enough. You need tools. You need strategies. You need a roadmap for action. Because democracy isn't a spectator sport. If you're sitting in the audience, you're already losing. So in this segment, we're going to give you exactly that. Knowledge you can use, steps you can take, and resources you can trust. We're going to talk about how to protect yourself, your family, and your future, peacefully, effectively, and without apology. Step 1. Understand the process. Before you can hold power accountable, you need to understand how power works. And that means understanding the legislative process, not in abstract terms, but in practical, actionable detail. Here's the short version. Bills start in committees. Hearings shape those bills. Committees draft reports. Those reports influence floor debates. Votes happen, and those votes become laws. If you want to influence the outcome, you need to engage early at the committee stage. Waiting until a bill hits the floor is too late. As the Congressional Research Service points out, committees are the engines of legislation. They decide what moves forward and what dies in the dark. So if you're serious about civic engagement, start there. Step 2. Track the issues. You can't fight what you can't see. So start tracking the issues that matter to you. Use Congress.gov. It's the official source for bills, hearings, and votes. Subscribe to committee calendars. Most committees publish schedules online. Set alerts. Use tools like GovTrack to get notifications when bills move. And don't just skim headlines. Read the summaries. Look at the sponsors. Ask yourself, who benefits from this bill? Who pays the price? Step 3. Know your rights. Knowledge isn't just power, it's protection. And that starts with knowing your rights. Freedom of Information Act. FOIA, you have the right to request government records. Use it. Comment on rules. When agencies propose regulations, you can submit comments. Your voice matters. Petition your government. It's not just a slogan, it's a constitutional right. As the ACLU reminds us, rights aren't self-executing. You have to claim them. You have to use them. Step 4. Contact your representatives. This is where most people tune out. They think, my voice doesn't matter. Wrong. It does. Here's how to make it count. Be specific. Don't just say, I oppose this bill. Say why. Be respectful. Anger gets ignored. Facts get heard. Be persistent. 1 email won't change the world. 10 might. And don't stop at email. Call. Write letters. Show up at town halls. As the League of Women Voters reminds us, democracy works best when citizens are informed and engaged. Step 5. Organize peacefully. Change doesn't happen alone. It happens in communities. So organize, peacefully, legally, and effectively. Start small. Talk to your neighbors. Host a discussion group. Use social media wisely. Share facts, not fear. Plan rallies with care. Follow legal guidelines. Prioritize safety. As history shows, peaceful activism moves mountains. Violence doesn't. Step 6. Take to the airwaves. You don't need a seat in Congress to have a voice. You have platforms, radio, podcasts, op-eds, social media. Use them. Call into talk shows. Share your perspective. Write op-eds. Local papers still matter. Create content. Start a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel. As the Brennan Center points out, civic engagement isn't just about voting. It's about amplifying your voice. Step 7. Protect your family. Now let's talk about personal impact. Because hearings don't just shape laws, they shape lives. Healthcare. Track hearings on drug pricing and insurance reform. They affect your premiums. Privacy. Follow tech hearings. They determine how your data is used. Education. Watch education hearings. They influence funding and safety standards. Knowledge is your shield. Use it. Step 8. Prepare for change. Legislation isn't static. It evolves. So stay ahead of the curve. Read fiscal notes. They show how bills affect budgets and your taxes. Watch regulatory updates. Agencies implement laws. Know the timelines. Plan for compliance. If you run a business, hearings can change your obligations overnight. As the Government Accountability Office reminds us, oversight isn't just about government, it's about you. No nonsense advice. Let me be blunt. If you're waiting for someone else to fix this, you're going to be waiting a long time. Politicians work for you, but only if you make them. So stop scrolling. Start acting. Read the bills. Track the votes. Contact your representatives. Organize your community. Because democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's a full-contact game, and the ball is in your court. In our final segment, we're going to bring it all home. We'll recap what we've learned, lay out clear action steps, and issue a call to civic awareness. Because this isn't just about hearings, it's about the health of our democracy. Stay with me. This is We the People 21, and I'm Racheal Quinn. Let's finish strong. Welcome back to We the People 21. If you've stayed with me through segments 1, 2, and 3, you've done more than listen. You've invested in understanding the truth behind the spectacle. You've learned why congressional hearings matter, how theater can overshadow substance, and what you can do to protect yourself, your family, and your future. Now, it's time to bring it all home. This segment is about clarity, action, and empowerment. It's about turning knowledge into movement. Because here's the truth. Democracy doesn't run on autopilot. It runs on you, your voice, your vote, your vigilance. Recap what we've learned. Let's start with a quick recap. Segment 1, we pulled back the curtain on congressional hearings, their purpose, their evolution, and their impact on your life. Segment 2, we dissected the anatomy of a modern hearing, the spectacle versus substance dynamic, the role of media, and the real-world consequences of political theater. Segment 3, we gave you tools, how to track bills, contact representatives, organize peacefully, and amplify your voice. And now, in Segment 4, we're going to connect the dots. We're going to turn insight into action. Why action matters. Here's the reality. Hearings shape laws. Laws shape lives. And if you're not part of the process, you're at the mercy of those who are. As the Brennan Center reminds us, transparency isn't enough. Accountability requires engagement. And engagement isn't passive, it's active, persistent, and informed. So let me ask you, are you ready to move from awareness to action? Are you ready to stop being a spectator and start being a participant? Because that's what this segment is about. Action step 1, stay informed. Information is your first line of defense. So commit to staying informed, not just about headlines, but about the details that matter. Read the bills. Don't rely on summaries. Look at the language. Track the votes. Know how your representatives are voting, not just what they're saying. Follow the money. Campaign contributions tell you who's influencing whom. As OpenSecrets.org shows, money moves policy. If you want to understand the playbook, follow the dollars. Action step 2, speak up. Your voice matters, but only if you use it. So speak up. Contact your representatives. Attend town halls. Submit comments on proposed rules. And don't stop at one email. Persistence is power. Lawmakers notice patterns. If they hear from you once, it's a blip. If they hear from you 10 times, it's a priority. As the League of Women Voters reminds us, democracy works best when citizens are informed and engaged. So engage. Action step 3, organize. Change doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in communities. So organize. Peacefully, legally, and effectively. Start small. Host a discussion group. Share resources. Build networks. Connect with advocacy groups. Join coalitions. Plan strategically. Focus on issues that matter most to your community. History proves this. Peaceful activism moves mountains. Violence doesn't. Action step 4, amplify. You have platforms. Use them. Call into radio shows. Write op-eds. Start a podcast. Share facts on social media. And here's the key. Share facts, not fear. Fear divides. Facts unite. As the Brennan Center points out, civic engagement isn't just about voting. It's about amplifying your voice. So amplify it. Action step 5, vote. This should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, vote. Every election. Every time. Local, state, federal. Because policy doesn't start in Washington. It starts in your backyard. And don't just vote. Help others vote. Register your neighbors. Drive people to the polls. Because democracy isn't just about you, it's about us. Let me be blunt. If you're waiting for someone else to fix this, you're going to be waiting a long time. Politicians work for you, but only if you make them. So stop scrolling. Start acting. Read the bills. Track the votes. Contact your representatives. Organize your community. Amplify your voice. Vote like your future depends on it, because it does. Democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's a full contact game. And the ball, it's in your court. If today's episode inspired you, share it. Send it to a friend. Post it on social media. And check the show notes for links, templates, and resources to help you take action. Subscribe to We the People 21. And remember, change starts with you, your vote, your voice, your vigilance. This is We the People 21. I'm Racheal Quinn. Thank you for listening, and thank you for caring enough to act.